Hello, our lovely listeners. Today we have a special guest. Normally we talk about topics with exotic animals from the other side, like the keeper perspective, maybe also, from people that go a professional route, but mostly the keeper perspective. But another very important discussion or very important topic is like the view from a veterinarian. And today we got an expert veterinarian. Gila is here today, and she's not just here because she's also named after the Gila monster, but also because she works with exotic animals. Gila, welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes, hi. Thank you very much for having me today. To be honest, when you asked me if I want to be on the podcast, I was like, yeah, why not? But honestly, I have no idea why, because I listened to some of your episodes and I'm like totally not like the usual guest you have. But maybe you just need some women on your podcast because you don't have so many.
True.
One so
But
far.
maybe I found some similarities because I don't have any reptiles. I don't have a lot of plants. Most of my plants are edible. Um, I'm not in this so deep into this reptile keeping like you guys are, but I'm a veterinarian. I work with a lot of species and I really like to work with exotic animals, even if it's not my main or my only work I do at the moment. And yeah, I think maybe this is the reason why I'm here today.
It is.
You said that you do not really keep reptiles and most of your plants are edible. But so tell us, what does that mean? So are you into the whatever spiders and scorpions, or do you have some philodendron plants at home, or what is that about?
Yeah, it's hard to say. So I'm not really into one animal species and like you are like the small mammal guy. Like some people are more into the reptiles, some are more into the arachnids, into I don't know, whatever. But for me it's like I really like to work with animals and I like to work with exotic animals because I like to also to combine the veterinary aspects and also the husbandry things and to get to know more about these kind of animals, but there's not one species which I like mostly. So I had when I was younger, I did have I had three, four um bearded dragons.
Ah,
So
yeah,
like the usual
a
thing. And
classic.
I yeah. And I definitely would like to keep reptiles again if I have more space and time and money. Um, But it's not that I'm only doing reptiles and I only love reptiles. I started at the university working as a student assistant in one of the clinics because I wanted to do the reptiles, but it was the clinics for birds, reptiles, amphibian, and fish. And I would say like 80% are like birds
Hmm.
and only 20% are reptiles.
And what's the
So I
percentage
also,
of the wild pigeons then?
oh, you don't want to know.
Too much.
Too high.
And are there also people who come to your veterinary clinic with a injured chicken?
Yes.
And do you
Chickens are getting very popular right now. So a lot of people are coming with the chickens, and the chickens are living with them in the kitchen and sitting
Oh,
on the
really?
sofa watching
What the fuck?
TV, and they wanna do everything for the chicken.
That's crazy. Interesting.
And sometimes do you run into issues if like the treatment is more expensive than a chicken in the supermarket? And do you sometimes recommend the clients to get a new one instead of treating the existing one?
I will not make this about the money because I think money should never be the main reason to proceed with the treatment or not. It's more about the living quality of the animal. But in the end, it's the owner has to decide what he or she wants. And if they want to spend a lot of money, why not?
Yeah, it's
Good
just
for
a
you
joke.
and good for the clinic. Somehow. Yeah. So what made you go into the like professional route of becoming a veterinarian? Was it like the typical childhood dream for you?
It was like, I don't know, I was always into animals. Like when I was a little girl and somewhere there were animals, I was like running away. And when my parents wanted me to go somewhere, they always were like, "Oh, there are horses nearby, or there are sheep, or they have a dog. We can go there." And then I was always like, "Yes, I'm coming." So I always liked animals. And then at some point, I wanted to keep my own animals. I had guinea pigs as a child. And then I was getting interest into reptiles, and there was this one guy who had like the usual thing, who had like a very cool reptile shop when I was a teenager, and I spent hours being just there, hanging around, looking at the animals, learning some stuff, and then I got the bearded dragons, and I really liked them. And of course, my husbandry was not the best because I had no idea what I was doing. My mom also had no idea. And at one point, one of them died, and I didn't know why. And I went to the guy and we're like, "Yeah, what did I do wrong?" And he was like, "Yeah, I don't know, but we can look into it. You have the dead animal. We can just like open it and see if we find something." And this was my first
Autopsy.
pathologic exam, and we
Right.
opened it and we looked into it, and it had like a, oh, how do you say it? Pre-ovulatory
Mm,
Oh, okay.
ovostasis.
like
So
legal mode.
yes, the not yet finished eggs kind of oh my God, it's so hard to explain in English. I'm so sorry. Yeah, they made problems, and the whole reproduction tract was kind of like infected, and it had a big inflammation, and it died. And yeah, it was strange to like see your own animal like opened up on a table. But I also had like this kind of scientific interest and was like, okay, it's nice to know what's going on. So
Yeah, I can
yeah,
relate to that. It's can be kind of brutal because just a couple hours or days ago it was probably your beloved pet, and all of a sudden you're standing there like a butcher and
Yeah.
dissecting your own animal, man. Yeah, that's kind of hard. So did that make you take a step back from keeping your own animals? Because so far I've realized, okay, you're already shaking your head, but you had these bearded dragons, and now you're not really
yes.
keeping reptiles anymore. So
Yeah, it
because you
was
don't
like
want, or because
in
you
the end, I
don't?
had one really old bearded dragon, and it was
Okay.
during my time at school, and then this one died, and I did not get any new ones because I was trying to figure out where I can go to university.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you know, but if you want to study veterinary medicine and you're not
Smartest, the brightest light bulb.
the very best in your class, it's not so easy to get in. So you just
Okay.
have to try and to see where you can go. And I got my spot in the end. I got my spot in Gießen, and I moved
Okay.
there, and I moved into a university student flat where
Mm-hmm.
you were not allowed to keep anything.
Oh, right, really?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So, but it's also okay because like I was studying, I didn't have space, I didn't have time, I didn't have a lot of money, and I also didn't know where I will go move next, where I will end up. And even after my university time, I started with a doctoral thesis, and I was traveling around a lot. And I'm somebody like when I decide to keep an animal, I want to keep it in a good way. I want to give it a good enclosure. I want to have time for the animal. I want to have money to invest to do things and build cool
Space,
stuff and like
everything that
everything.
it
And I,
takes.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't have all these things right now. So I'm always thinking about it, but I'm always like, yeah, maybe not yet, maybe not yet, maybe when the time is right. And sometimes it's hard because sometimes even
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
clinic we have like animals and they need a new home, and I'm sometimes like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, but then I'm always like, nope, not yet. So I don't have animals right now, but
Was
I
there
probably will. And
okay.
at one point, I really have to keep Heloderma.
Yes,
Like, there's an
just
animal who has the same name than I have. Like, how cool is that?
no chance you.
So I'm just wondering, working in the clinic, do you ever get into situations where where you have to decide to take the animal home with you, or elsewise it's going to be euthanized?
I only had this once, and it was it some kind of tortoise, and it belonged to a colleague of mine, and it was very little, like only a few days old, and it had a big eye infection and was not eating well and needed like a lot of intensive care. And he asked me, because he was going on a holiday trip, like if I would be interested in looking after it, because he needed somebody who's like very into it. And I said yes. And I had it, but only like for 3 weeks, and then he got it back, and it survived.
Okay, okay.
Nice.
But this was the only one, I think,
Okay, okay.
and only temporary.
I was wondering, maybe in zoos it's more common if you're like a veterinarian in one zoo and you have to treat the animals all the time. Sometimes maybe the resources of the zoo don't allow for a longer term treatment of a more or less common species. I don't know. So maybe then you maybe either have to euthanize the animal or maybe can take it home and give it a second life at your place. I don't know, some random rodent or something like that. No?
So I don't know, from my experience, the good thing if you are a veterinarian in the zoo is that most of the time you don't have to worry about the money in the first place.
Okay.
Because if it's only about the money, most zoos they really have the financial possibilities to also put into expensive treatments and stuff, because most of the animals, they are very valuable. And if you have to decide to not treat an animal or maybe to euthanize it, it's often not because it's a sick animal. It's more about the living quality and the outcome. Of course, sometimes it's also dependent on the EEPs, the stud book, if they have one, and if the animal is very important for the breeding population or is not, then also this is important to take into account. But usually in zoos, it's much more easier than with a lot of private owners.
Okay, okay.
Because I know like a lot of private owners like you guys, they have like a lot of experience and they know their species. Like very often people come to me and they really know the species, and I'm like, okay, I have to look up like the temperature and exactly what, I don't know. I don't know everything out of my head because I'm a veterinarian. I don't know, I don't have to know every species. But then the people sometimes don't understand that maybe I'm not the expert on these special species, but I know how to treat special kind of infections. I know how to do diagnostic imaging. I know how to draw blood and interpret the blood values. I know other stuff. And
And
it's
you know how
sometimes
to look
hard
up
to
the
find.
information that you need.
Yes, of course. And I have a lot of colleagues and other people who are like also very into it. And there's a lot of exchange. And I think sometimes you have to convince the people that you have to like join your experience and join your forces, because then you can work best. But sometimes it's a bit, yeah, it's depending on the people, but sometimes it's a bit difficult to convince people that you're very necessary, especially
Okay.
with reptiles.
Because people think they have probably a bigger knowledge than they actually have.
Not only this, also like cats and dogs, or like also rabbits, horses. It's very common to go to the vet, like, I don't know, once a year, every other year, just do a checkup. But with reptiles, very often, especially like turtles and tortoises, I get very old animals. No, they are always well. They never had anything. We never have visited a veterinarian. But
Always
this
when it's too
doesn't
late.
mean this doesn't mean that the animal is totally healthy, because a lot of these animals just don't show any signs in the beginning,
They
and you really
suffer in
cannot
silence.
see. And if I'm going to the people and say, okay, it's just like a tortoise, and I want to take blood just like for a routine blood draw, a lot of people are like, no, why?
Have
Because
not
it's
this
not
routine
very
checkup, yeah.
common yet. And now I have a question for you guys, maybe
Mhm.
especially for you, Ben, because you also are keeping a mammal species.
Okay.
Because I would be interested if you do any kind of like medical training or stuff with the animals.
Try to describe medical training. What does it mean, medical training?
Oh,
Like
this can be
deworming, for example?
no, training the animals for medical exams, for medical things. Like for most of the snakes, it's just like do regular handling to get them
Oh,
to know that
training.
somebody is
Okay.
like training, to
Ah,
grabbing
okay,
them,
like
doing stuff.
hands-on experiences to get the animals used to kind of
Yes,
manipulation.
yes. Or maybe like for lizards to
Interesting.
put them in a transportation box every now and then so that they
Oh,
don't
okay.
get totally stressed out or freak out if they have, I don't know if you do it with your lories, if there would be a problem with them, would you be able to put them in a transportation
Interesting. It's a
box
good
as I
question.
used it?
Yeah, it's
So
a
I
good
would be very
question.
interested because I've seen amazing medical training like target training when you have like a little
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
badge or little sign and it's colored and you just put it somewhere. And I've seen it like with bearded dragons. And you just put this
Target training.
sign somewhere, and the bearded dragons are like walking up and
Okay.
running to it because they know if they go there and like touch it or just be there, they get something to eat.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you can do even with reptiles. A lot of people, I think, they don't know or they don't really care, but I think you
Okay.
can do a lot also with like interesting animals. And of course, as a veterinarian, it's always nice if the animal is at least used to be handled,
Okay,
to be
okay.
touched.
Okay, okay. Interesting. Yeah, it's a good question. I see two topics in that. It's on the one hand, when you call it medical training, just to make the handling of the animal practical. So the animal is used to certain procedures. And on the other hand, I also see this point of enrichment, behavioral enrichment, where you can just try to
Yes.
make the life of the animal a little bit more interesting by offering some kind of training. And okay, so first of all, if I ever need to go to the vet with my animals, I usually take out the animals in a very simple way. And it is that my animals usually always pick the same nest boxes to sleep. So I just collect them during the time of the day when they are not active. So for the loris, that will be in the daytime, and for diurnal, day active animals, that will be in the nighttime, just to close up the nest boxes, take them out, put them in a separate transport box, and then go to the veterinarian as soon as possible so that they are not disturbed from catching them, because I'm very much against trying to catch the animals out of their enclosures with nets or with bare hands, because it's just super stressful. I mean, with reptiles, maybe sometimes it's a bit more necessary because they are not so much maybe used to always picking the same nest boxes, because terrariums are usually more uh, diversely in build up. So sometimes you can find them in cork barks or under stones and stuff. So maybe some handling is necessary in that way. But for my animals, I can really say that I never ever pick the animals up with my bare hands, except being at the vet when there's no other option anymore. But for the taking them out of the enclosure, it's just taking the nest box, and I think it's really the easiest way. For taking weights, I have a little kitchen scale where there are branches screwed onto the plate of the kitchen scale. So I just ask the animals to come onto these branches that are connected to the scale, so I can easily take the weight also without even touching the animals.
Ask how. How do
How?
you ask them? How do you ask them to go there?
For example, the blueberries, that's a strong point.
Yeah, but I think
Some,
this is some kind of medical training,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Okay, we're getting there.
And
Yeah,
it's
so
good.
so with the loris, it's super easy to manipulate the animals because, and at the moment I'm keeping one, yeah. So, and my loris is very, I don't want to say tame, but very used to me. So we have a good trust bond. And if I offer him something interesting to eat and ask him to go to a certain place, he will more or less always come. It's just a matter of time. And so that's how I interact with him. Yeah, just offering him some snacks and then making him go to
Yeah.
different
But
places.
that's cool. And medical training does not
Yeah.
always have to mean that you are like touching the animal or like
Mm.
grabbing it. It can also
Yeah.
just mean that you're there and make the animals like come towards you and just like stay close to you so you can like look at them or
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
like be at the fence or like you don't always have to like touch the animals, but for example, like for snakes, sometimes when they're not even used to get touched and you have to do like an exam,
Yeah, yeah.
of course it's more difficult, but you can do a lot of things. And I think most people don't really know how much they can do even with those kind of animals, like with all
hmm
kind of
hmm
animals.
Yeah. I'm thinking also, for example, really checking the animals from all angles. Yeah, with the lures,
Yes.
it's pretty much easy
Yes.
because you can have some branches above you and you can make them hang upside down, and then you can easily take a look from all sides because they are moving so slowly. But for reptiles, I'm thinking maybe you have another idea about it too, but I'm thinking for reptiles, maybe you can just put them in a clear box and just check them from all sides that way. But it means also some extra stress because you pull them out of the enclosure. But if you
But
really want
maybe
to,
if they know the box because it's in the enclosure, like always, they don't
oh
really
yeah,
mind if it's getting picked up for every now and then because they
oh
already know
true.
it.
Okay.
It's an interesting topic because I think most of the time people only think about it when it comes to
When
dangerous
it's too
animals.
late.
Yeah, when it's too late or when it comes to handling dangerous animals. For example, like you said, Ben, with the hide boxes or the sleeping boxes, you also know this from a lot of keepers of venomous snakes. They also often offer just one or two boxes that you also can reach from outside the enclosure or that you can separate from the enclosure. For example, when you have to clean it up, you can just insert another wall and the animal is divided from the enclosure and it's in the box. And that way you can maintain the enclosure or just take the animal with the box out. Um, I've read an interesting article some years ago about like handling Komodo dragons and
hmm
how they use medical training in zoos to
Mm-hmm.
work with them. And there,
Yeah.
Gila, you know this best, I think. Some zoos have like a non-touch policy where it's just like target training, luring the
Yeah.
animal into a special box where they can fixate it. And other zoos have more the hands-on experience. And yeah, I think especially with non-venomous or non-dangerous animals, people don't think a lot about medical training and proper handling because it's a little bit with like with dogs. If you have a big dangerous dog, you want to have it well trained, and the small dogs are always misbehaved because people are like, yeah, I don't need to train the dog, he's small. And I feel like it's the same with small colubrids or bearded dragons where people are like, yeah, I can easily overpower them. They are no danger to me, but also these could use some good training, I think. By the way, sorry for the
hmm
interruption, but do you hear this noise all the time? Did you hear something?
I
No?
don't hear
Okay,
I
anything.
don't
good.
hear anything.
Okay, perfect. Because I have some issues with my headphones. They are empty and it's not loading, and I'm always trying to get it to load and it's making a little noise. And I was all the time like, oh, I hope they are not annoyed and I hope they
Ah,
don't
it's
hear.
fine, man.
Okay,
Oh,
perfect.
so you
You're
only
very
have
good
one plug.
prepared.
You only have one in the ear right now.
Yeah, because they are nearly empty and this is not loading properly. So I'm
Ah,
trying to
okay.
load the one in case this one is empty. So
Wow, okay.
sorry for
Fucking
that.
stressful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, let's
Okay.
go.
Yeah,
No.
but very cool
Yeah.
topic. I also saw some people like target training cobras and also indigo snakes. And I wanted to
hmm
try this one day with my indigo snake because they uh, seem to do pretty well with this. And yeah, it would be interesting
I
to
th
Yeah.
check
yeah.
it
I
out.
think you don't have to start directly with something like target training. You can just
Yeah.
like, I don't know, introduce the animals to like an extra transportation box or just especially for like lizards and snakes. If you don't have a no touch policy, just like put your hand, like what I did with my
Mm.
better dragons, just put my hand in and see if they come on and just feel comfortable about sitting on a hand without freaking out. And if you do it like once a week, they get comfortable quite easy and they're not scared if you have to touch them or do something. And I think this is even the case with a lot of snakes. If they are used to like getting picked out or like
Yeah.
handled outside their enclosure, it's also good just in case something's going on. Of
Yeah.
course, with the loris, I can totally understand that you don't want to touch them, but you can also do a lot like without touching the animal.
Yeah. So I mean, a slight touch is fine, but I never pick them up,
Yeah.
never take them the grip to the branches because that will make them feel insecure. And to me, it's very important to have a strong trust to the animal. I think you can you could say that for all animals, it's even important to build a strong trust to a reptile if that's what you want. So you can build a strong trust bond to a reptile.
Or at
And
least tolerance, I think.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And I think there are really some benefits to that. I don't really want to say that it is the best way because maybe I don't really have the experiences to keep animals and to try to avoid any whatever type of contact with them because it's also a possibility just to leave them as wild as possible. But I think there are a lot of benefits to taming them a little bit or to getting them used to some human interaction because they will just be so much less stressed. And I think they will probably live a better life if they are just more used to human interaction in some way. But I don't know, Gila, do you have like a recommendation about it? Would you suggest or would you recommend all the reptile keepers to try to get into as much contact as possible with their animals or
I don't say as much contact. I just say it would be nice if people think more about this. And I don't have
okay.
like a certain recommendation, like you should do this or you should do that. But like, for example, you just directly told me that you are weighing your animals. You have a little weigh. A lot of people don't have this or don't have like an easy way to get animals on a scale. So you don't have to like do like a perfect training or whatever, but it's just good like to think about it and to think about what you can do. And especially if you know you have an animal who maybe has to go to the veterinarian in a week or in 2 weeks, maybe try to introduce a transportation box in before, or maybe try just to do little things to get the animals used to some stuff. But I don't say you have to touch the animals all the time. Of course not. It's like they are no cuddly little fluffy kittens or little doggies. It's like a total different kind of species and a different kind of interaction. But I think for most of these animals, if you are keeping them, it's hard to say, I'm keeping them and I will never ever interact with them. Because most of the times, yeah, you have to do something in the enclosure. You have to maybe move them around for like husbandry management situations. And sometimes you have to go and visit the vet or veterinarian is coming to you. So it's very hard to say, okay, I'm just keeping the animals, I'm just putting them somewhere and never ever will look at them again. Because if you're keeping them, you kind of have a responsibility. And just putting them somewhere and not looking at them, of course you can do it. And some animals, if they hide a lot, you don't see them often. But it would be nice to every now and then like check on them and see if they are actually there and if they are well. Because sometimes you can, if they have something, you can help them very easily. And you could miss something if you don't even try to look at them.
I have this, I would say, a little problem with my tropical night lizard, Lepidophyma flavimaculatum, because it's sometimes there are periods where I see her every night chilling in the same spot, and then when I change a little thing in the enclosure, or sometimes she just don't want to show us that, there are periods of time where I don't see her for weeks and even months, and you just have some like hints that she's still there. For example, finding some poop somewhere, or she's leaving some, yeah, changing something in the enclosure. And one or two times I tried something different out to check if she's still there. And I positioned my GoPro inside the enclosure at the time where I know, okay, in the next 30 to 60 minutes she should come out, and then made a time lapse. And later on the video, I saw where she's coming up and looking around because she's so shy that she won't come out. And she has a very, very well-structured natural enclosure, so it makes it not very easy to find her without disturbing her too much. Yeah.
Of course. And I don't say like for every animal you have to check them every week. It's of course depending on which kind of animal species, which kind of enclosure, but it's good to at least like think about it and think about what you could do with an animal. And I think this is like leading to another topic because like I listened to some of your podcast recordings, and you very often speak about all the cool animals people are keeping, and maybe somebody wants to get another species, and then you discuss the pros and the cons for keeping another species. But I was wondering, like if you have to say like the main reason why you're keeping these kind of, I would just say like unusual exotic species, what is the main reason for you to keep those kind of animals?
That's a hard question.
I think this is like the question everybody who is keeping these animals should ask, because are we just keeping them to show off? Maybe in the beginning, some people, but this is not like the main reason. Like when I listen to you guys and to a lot of your other guests, they are investing a lot of time and energy and money and a lot of things really into keeping, into building, into doing stuff. Like why are you doing it? Maybe Ben, you have an idea why are you keeping the lorries?
Yeah, okay, man, that's a very tough question. It's a especially tough question, in my opinion, and that's the reason why I just last week did a recording with Animals at Home, with the Animals at Home podcast about pretty much exactly this question. It's
I
about
didn't know that.
yeah, it's pretty interesting. And the name of the podcast or the name of the episode will be something like finding finding your why in the hobby. So finding your passion and executing it. Because I chose the topic on purpose. Because I think it is a topic that most people do not really think about so much. And sometimes we are just doing whatever we feel like is right. We're doing it pretty much blind. And after a certain time, then suddenly maybe some people wake up and realize, it's not the right thing that I'm doing. Maybe I'm not working with the right species, so I need to switch my species, or maybe I should stop reptile keeping and get into fish and stuff. And probably it happens because a lot of people get into the hobby or make decisions in the hobby kind of on impulse, and maybe don't think about decisions too much, and that's how you can make wrong decisions. And for me personally, why the loris? It's even though I chose the topic for my own podcast recording, finding your vision and executing it, I have difficulties answering the question about the choice of the species, because at a certain point I try to be very logical and rational about these topics and questions, sub-questions within the big one. I try to be very logical about most of it, but at a certain point, then I feel like it's just my gut feeling, you know. I'm just super fascinated by especially this genus of the loris, or yeah, today it's not even a genus anymore because they are split now. So whatever, the group of these nocturnal primates, you can say, I'm just super fascinated by them, and that made me study them for years and years and years before I then even got my first in-person experiences with them here in Germany or other countries in Europe, then also overseas and stuff. And by now there's just such a long story that is connecting me to those animals that I think it's just my faith in a way. It's just my path now. But also, I would be okay to pick another species to work with and then to get super invested into, because there are so many interesting animals. Yeah, so I can't really tell you why this species or why exactly these animals, besides that they are
But,
incredible and fascinating. Yeah, okay.
but yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I have to be more precise, because
Okay.
my question was not like exactly why did you choose these kind of species, but more like
Okay.
why did you choose to, in general, keep
Okay.
very exotic animals?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
like I
okay.
think one thing is of course what you said, like the passion, that you are very fascinated by certain kind of animals and they are not very usual. You don't see them every day and you really like watching them. You want to learn more about the animal. You are very
Mm-hmm.
interested. And maybe you also want to share your knowledge with all your friends who are coming to visit you and want to show off that you have these animals. I think this is one aspect, but I think if you're going to keep these kind of animals, you always have to think like, because a lot of these species are like threatened in the wild. There are not so many animals, and you have to think about, okay, am I going to breed them? Maybe participate a little bit in trying to
Conservation? That's
yeah,
what you're looking for?
kind of do something like this. Yeah, do like your own private, because like a lot of zoos are keeping the animals, of course, to have like an ex situ population, like a population outside their natural habitat. But
Hmm.
do you have, as a private person, the same motivation as a zoo? Not totally, but maybe this is also one thing you are saying, yeah, maybe this is a very special animal and I don't want to get it to extinct and I can myself like do something to prevent it. Maybe it's the reason for some people, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a giant discussion about just this topic. I feel like it can be a huge topic, especially because I've been in this movement of animal keeping kind of forever. So I started at the age of 8, and there was only a short period in my life where I didn't have any animals. Uh, but the older I grow, I feel like the more and more I distance myself from the animal keeping hobby. And maybe if I got into, or if I had another chance at life and started all over again, maybe I would just be super happy and passionate about learning about the animals and not even keeping them at home. I think that's even an option for me. But today I'm so deep into what I'm doing that it is a little bit difficult to switch at the moment, even though I am actively considering it, to be honest. And you spoke about these ex situ populations, and especially for the loris, there's a population in the European zoos, of course.
Yeah,
How do you say, hosted by the EEP, the
yeah,
European Endangered Breeding Pro Species Breeding Program. And in the private sector, there's only a handful of people, and yeah, really just a handful of people, and it doesn't really make so much sense to keep them privately and not cooperate with the ex situ EEP population. So that's what I would love to do. And there are even more plans behind that, but it's a very difficult challenge. So it's not like a easy task that you can just join and then cooperate. It's
yeah,
not like that. So I'm working very hard on that, to be honest, for years already. So I'm trying to hopefully make some improvements in that regards. And if at the end of the day it leads to the fact that I need to give away my animal to have some positive impact, and if that's the only choice, maybe I will even consider doing that. At the moment, I don't really keep many animals at my place, and my vision for my own future is very complex. So I don't want to make this all about myself now, but I can really understand why you are critical about this. Yeah, okay, do you really need to keep these animals if you're just interested in them? Why don't you just invest your energy and money and time into just conservation projects in situ? You can also do that, go to Vietnam once a year, make some donations and appreciate the animals in the wild. It's also some possibility. And there's this one guy, till you know him as well, Eddie at Father Blue. His name is on Instagram. It's a guy who's really interested in or into the blue tree monitors. It's these blue tree monitors.
No way.
Varanus
really?
macaque. Yeah. Pretty, yeah, but I think all of the listeners might know them. And he had a pretty huge population in New York City. Doesn't animals or so, really endangered, valuable animals, and he even had some breeding success. But now he made the decision to invest his time and energy into a conservation project on the island of Batanta. That's where they're found on Indonesia. And he even gave away all of his animals, or is in the process of giving them away at the moment. And it really inspired me in a way. So yeah, that's an option. if it makes sense, it really needs to make sense, you know. Yeah, but yeah,
I think this is very, very cool to talk about this and very honest of you to like because it's like an inner conflict that I think a lot of people have that of course they want to keep the animals themselves, they want to do something, but sometimes you have to see if it's like for these species, if it's like the best to keep them privately or not.
yeah, definitely.
So it's very, very, very honest to see your struggle there.
Yeah. It's super difficult.
Yeah.
Then I'm also taking into consideration the husbandry standards. Uh, and if I, for example, made the decision to give away my animals to an EEP program, then I will also need to ask myself under which conditions the animal is gonna live its life. And you know, that's then the animal welfare in contrast
Yeah.
to the aspect of the bigger conservation goal. And yeah, so I am for the moment trying to accomplish the best possible standard for the animal care. And that's how I want to spread my knowledge to have a positive impact on the animals that are living in zoos as well. So that's how I can, I don't know, see a bigger goal in what I'm doing at the moment, you know, trying to
Yeah, I think
elevate the
this
standard
is
of
also
husbandry and then sharing
yeah.
information. Yeah.
I think this is also very important because especially in the sector of like exotic animals, we have of course zoos who have their population, and very often we have private owners. And of course, one of the main reason for a zoo is to do like research. And especially these kind of species like reptiles and amphibians, we don't have for a lot of animals. We don't have like a husbandry how do you say it? Guidelines. Like for a lot of mammals, we have like husbandry guidelines with like suggestions about the food, about a lot of things. And for a lot of like reptiles and amphibians, we don't have them yet. And I have a colleague of mine, he's a curator at a zoo, and he told me like recently they asked him to look after some of the frogs because they need somebody who look into it because they're not breeding very well and they don't know why. And he was trying to find some information online, and there was not really any because for some species you don't really find a lot of things online and there's not much information. And I think this is another important thing, and it would be so nice if like the people who privately keep these species could collaborate more with like people like me who are doing like research and stuff with zoos to establish more information, to do more research, to do just to get more about these animals because it's very important, and I think everybody could profit from this. But right now, I think not with many species. It's like you said, like you have your private owned lorries and you have the EP, and it's like most of the time, or sometimes it's like two separated populations, and there should be more possibilities for exchange and or joint research or stuff. Because now I'm going away from you. I'm going back to me because I'm the guest today.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
And maybe this is another reason why I am here because I'm writing a doctoral thesis and I'm doing it about rhinos, very big mammals. But maybe it's a bit similar with what a lot of you people are doing because like my topic is I'm looking into the nutrition of the animals, I'm looking into the husbandry, I'm looking into the guidelines, and I'm seeing what are we doing in the zoos, what is the usual natural thing in their natural habitat, and I'm comparing things and I'm trying to see can we improve things, do we have any problems like medical problems or like other problems. And I think the same thing that I'm doing about rhinos is what a lot of people who are like keeping reptiles or exotic mammals or whatever, they also want to get more information about the animal, about the husbandry, and just try to improve living in a zoo or in a private keeping or like just outside the natural habitat, because a lot of animals, we know this, we are like in the sixth mass extinction, so we don't know how long we still have all the natural habitats for the animals and how long they can survive just out there in the nature without our help keeping them. So maybe for some species, it's very important that we have also the population like under human management.
Yeah. I feel like, especially in the reptile hobby, this scientific approach is missing. Like continuously collecting feces, analyzing it, continuously weighting the animals. It's not something a lot of people do, and there are a lot of species where we have very good running like private populations. And if
Yeah.
we would collect more data with them, this could be very, very
Yes,
interesting. For example,
definitely.
when I think about like the Chinese crocodile lizards, Shinisaurus, they are now in a very, very stable private population in zoos and private hand. But if I'm correct, Ben, they are in a very not that good state in the wild. So maybe this could also help.
No ideas about the number and don't no idea about the numbers, but I'm sure you're right. They are not in a good place in the wild, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I feel like it's difficult to get like science, the zoos, and the private keepers all together on the same page, like sitting at the same table, um, doing the best for the animals. Mm. Do you, Gila, do you know how the typical zoos view the private hand? Because I feel like there's not a lot of cooperation.
I know that the problem always is that with the zoos, especially when you have like an IASA zoo or like a zoo who's in a European group, it has to fulfill certain standards to be in it. And there are a lot of people who are like controlling, checking, doing stuff. And in the private sector, there's a wide range. There are people who really know their species, who really doing a very good thing, who like have so much experience and have very good enclosures and stuff. But unfortunately, you also have people who just, I don't know, go to a terroristica or like go somewhere or just like somebody, I don't know, has to give up their animals and somebody else is getting them. And just suddenly somebody is there and having an animal and has no idea or very little idea how to really care for the animal and what to do with the animal. And so we have a lot of, yeah, we have a very wide range of people who are doing it and a lot of yeah, different styles of husbandry and care. So I think for the zoos, it's always like when you say you give it to private keepers, it's always like can be good or can be not very good. So it's always a
Yeah.
bit if I
Mhm.
know zoos who are like working with private people, but then very often it's like some certain people who they know and who they can do like an exchange and they know, okay, it's working. But zoos are often, I think, like hesitant to just contact or just collaborate with new people who they don't really know what are they doing. Do they provide a certain standard? Because you never know.
I think you already said it. There must be like a trust, like a bond, like a good
Yeah.
relation. And if that's what you want to go for as a private, to go into this niche or area of cooperating with zoos, then you need to probably deliver some value first. So you have to make yourself like believable with what you're doing. And so if you're already working with some interesting species, then maybe the first step would be to, I don't know, write articles, do it maybe publicly on, I don't know, reptile magazines, or maybe even just write an article and share it to people who are working in the zoo industry, just to get your name out there, and then to establish like a relationship with them. Maybe you can even give talks. There are local clubs for the reptile hobby, for example, and some people from the zoo world might also be part of these clubs. So that's how you can start, building a
Yeah.
reputation for yourself. And once you deliver some value, then you can maybe ask for something, and that's where cooperation starts, in my opinion. But just randomly reaching out to a zoo and like, can I have this animal?
Won't
That's probably
happen.
not going to work out.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Feel like the communities like the DGHT or something like
Hmm.
this can also play a very important role in this because they have a reputation. They also pay for like studies and field hopping trips and stuff, and also publish articles to their own magazines. And I also think they are very well connected to zoos, like Cologne Zoo is working together with them, I think.
Yeah.
And Gila, do you know the approach of how is it called? Ben, I forgot the project.
Citizen conservation.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
Yes,
okay.
Do
yes,
you
of
know that
course I
one?
know it.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
really thinking of getting animals like from them and trying to
Which
breed
one?
animals
Which
because
species?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Because there are
I
some.
really like the oh, how is it the English name, the
Bone-headed toad or something. That's the one I'm looking for.
mm, no, I was thinking about another one, but
Okay. Yeah, the
not at the
project in
moment.
itself is
Lemur
just so
frog.
cool.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very cool because I don't know, most of the people will probably know, but they have like certain kind of species, I think mostly amphibians, and they can give them into like private hand, and private keepers should try to breed them to help to build up like an ex situ population. And I
Yeah.
really like this kind of concept. I have no idea how it's going right now, if they are very successful or not. I have no idea, but it would be very interesting to look into it. And I already thought about like getting in contact because I
Yeah,
really
man,
like
that's cool.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool. But
Think
just
they.
like because we
Sorry.
thought about it's difficult to like connect people from zoos and connect people from like private sector. But I think like right now we are at the
That's the way.
Yeah,
perfect
working
connection
on it.
because like I'm not really working in a zoo right now, but I have worked with a lot of zoos together for my doctoral thesis. I sometimes be involved in project with zoos, and I know a lot of zoo people. And you know a lot of zoo people too, and also a lot of private keepers. So I don't know if there's anybody out there who want to do a collaboration, or maybe we can also just like do some, not that I have time, but we can just do some, I don't know, we can write a scientific report and just see what people are keeping and what they are doing and whatever. I don't know, just to get like a start off. It's definitely something you could think about, like.
That's
Too.
great.
And both of the hosts are like just like looking at me like, oh my God, she really wanna do some research with us. Oh my God, no, please go away.
No, this is perfect. I think
Silence.
like connecting people is also a goal of this podcast, right, Ben?
That's for sure.
Yeah. Gila, you said you want to pursue a career at a zoo. Um, but how come you want to do that? Is it like more interesting because you have big exotic animals, or what's what's driving you into this direction?
So I really like working with like cats and dogs, but it's like it's a total different work than what I do right now with my doctoral thesis, because with my doctoral thesis about the rhinos, the African rhinos, I'm more looking about the whole ecology, physiology, living situation of the animals in the zoo, like connecting the husbandry, the nutrition, the medical things, of course. But it's like a whole thing. And if you have like in a private practice where I'm now, and you have like mostly the dogs and the cats, but also sometimes like birds and stuff, you are only the veterinarian. You don't really have any influence on what the people are doing at home. You don't have any influence in what they feed the animals, and especially with the reptiles and also with the birds, a lot of problems are husbandry related. Like I would say like 80-90% of the problems are husbandry related
Wow.
because something is not working well, or people don't look into nutrition, or just have no clue what they are doing. And I really like if you're working with zoos or also tier parks, or I don't know, like other kind of things, you really have like the one whole, I don't know, the whole picture, not just only like a small part, because I think you cannot do like just a veterinary exam and just do a quick view on the animal and say, okay, it's this or it's that, but it's like a whole thing. And a lot of diseases or like problems we have with animals which are housed in managed conditions. And this is like for all animals, like for mammals, for birds, for reptiles, for everybody. A lot of problems are also related to like husbandry and nutrition. And of course, for veterinarians, these are very important things to prevent on the long-term disease, and not just only to step in if we have like an open bleeding wound or like a immediate situation, because we want to do like a preventive medicine and a long-term approach, and also like maybe to have the best husbandry and nutrition to have like a breeding population and reproduction success. And I really like to take everything into account and try to improve things. Yeah, and I think this is totally different to working in small animal practice.
Yeah,
Or like
this part
with
is
cows or chicken, when it's always
yeah,
like we have to eat the animal in the end, so we cannot use any medicine. No, it's not like this, but it's a different kind of approach, a different kind of view you have on the whole situation.
yeah, yeah.
Ma-
With the animal, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe especially because when you're working in a clinic and you get these private pet owners walking in all the time, then you also have to rely on them telling you the truth about the situation that's going on, especially about the husbandry conditions and whatever. And maybe the people are telling you just out of shame, not really what's going on at their place, you know. Oh yeah, of course the enclosure is this and this, has this and this equipment. Of course, I have the UV light, and of course, I have the heat bulb, and of course, I change the water every day. But probably it's not even true. But you have no real chance to get to the truth, you know. And that's a way
The
you.
problem is more the other way around, because then I come in and I tell the people, okay, you cannot feed this stuff like every day. You have to change your light bulb. You have to give the
Okay.
animals these kind of nutritional supplements because we have like bone issues in reptiles. And then the people are like, oh, yes, okay. And
Yeah,
they go
but you can
home.
never control if
And
they
maybe
execute
maybe
it.
like the first week after they
Yeah,
visited me, they are like, oh, okay, I'm remembering it and I will look into it. And then it's
yeah,
like 3 months later and they come with the next animal and it has exactly the same problems. And you ask like, did you change something about nutrition? And then it's like, yeah, we tried, but it was difficult.
yeah.
And then it's very frustrating because you really like you wanna get the long-term outcome, of course, for the animal. You don't only want to cure like the immediate situation. You want to have a good life and a good welfare for the animal at home. And this is
Mm-hmm.
very hard to achieve because sometimes people, of course, we are human, and we always tend to, when we have an animal, like think, what would a human do or how would a human feel? And if we like it, then it has to be good for the animal. So, like, fruit is very healthy for us, strawberries. So we just give it to the animal because fruit is a healthy food. But, and maybe also some animals, like when they are in the nature, they also can get like some kind of fruits. So it's their natural feed. It's very good. It has to be good. And then we think, oh, we are doing a very good job from a human point of view. But from the animal's point of view, maybe it's getting fruit in the natural habitat, but the commercial fruit that we are buying in the supermarket
It's
is
just so
from its
different.
composition
Yeah.
totally different to what you find outside there. And it's not healthy for the animals. And they are very, like, there are a few species which actually need fruit, but a lot of animals don't need fruit, and it should not be their daily feed. And of course, if you feed them for years with the fruit, then the animals like it and they want to eat it. And if you suddenly stop and give them something else, just green leafy salad, they are like, no, I'm not eating it on the first day, of course. And then a lot of people were like, yeah, I tried once and they didn't eat
That's
it,
not
so I just
possible.
gave strawberries again. And then it's very hard. And then they said, okay, I feed them like 10 years and it worked. So why change a running system? But maybe you did something and the animals did not die, but does not mean that you cannot do better.
So, okay.
Yeah,
Does it mean when you're working as a veterinarian in a zoo, does it also mean that you are directly responsible for the husbandry itself? Are you then usually also a curator for a certain
depending on where you're
area
working.
or okay. So how
Like,
does
for
it
example, like the clinic where I'm working right now, the veterinarians are going into the zoo and looking after some animals of the zoo.
okay,
But they
but it's not full
only
time for
are
them.
there at the veterinary as a veterinarian. But other zoos, they have a lot of smaller zoos. They have like veterinarian slash curator, and you do both things. But I think it's very dependent on exactly where you are working and what your job description is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's getting bigger that more zoos are getting extra people who are working as a nutritionist. More zoos are getting more veterinarians to also involve the veterinarians in like EEPs, in like husbandry related discussions, in like research, because it's not so easy just to say, okay, one person is only doing the veterinary stuff, one person is doing the nutrition, one person is cleaning the enclosure, one person is doing the training. No, it should be like a whole group of people who work together. And if you have private owned animals, of course, you are one person and you do everything, maybe except the veterinary stuff, hopefully. But you're one person and you do like everything. But in a zoo, a lot of people are like working together. But if you have the possibility to have so many people, you should have experts in every separate kind of field. And now I kind of forgot what your question was. I'm sorry. Did I
I think
answer
you
it?
Yeah,
already
no,
answered it.
yeah, my question was just at the end of the day, how much influence you have on the husbandry itself when you are a veterinarian. But probably it's just
Depending.
you already answered it, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
depending on your situation at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I can imagine that it's way less frustrating if you work at the zoo and help to get the health approach into the big picture of keeping animals, and you can step into the environment of the animals to check, is everything going well? It's much more diverse and sounds much more interesting than just sitting at the clinic. People come, you rely on their information, and you give them some information back.
But also, of course, like with my research, what I'm doing now for my doctoral thesis, I'm collecting information and in the end, I'm publishing it. And I'm getting people some information and telling them that, okay, we have a problem there. Maybe there's a problem there. Maybe this is working good. This is not working good. But I have no guarantee that somebody will read it or will put an effort in following it. But at least like I did my part. Like I did something and I tried to do it. And of course I cannot like influence everything. But for me, I really like working in these kind of sector and doing this kind of research and stuff because you really get something which actually can help like a whole population of a certain kind of species.
Yeah. And probably over your career, you will find like a niche for yourself, which you will develop into a true specialist in. Like maybe it will also have to do with the
Loris.
job. Yeah, maybe we will see. It will have to do with the job that you're taking, you know, also the possibilities that it will give you, like the species available and whatever type of facility you're working in. And then probably over decades, you can, I don't know, do more and more research on a kind of a related topic and build like a huge knowledge base around it. And that way develop into a true expert in some field. Yeah, it will just take some time, I think. And then also, I think you will be responsible of making your your research visible, making it interesting and sharing it. And
Yeah.
I don't know how you usually publish your research, but
Oh, I'm just about to publish my first one, so we cannot
yeah,
speak about usual
no,
yet.
but
So
usually as a, I don't know, as
as a
somebody like
researcher,
you, as a veterinarian slash researcher, I don't know, maybe you can publish your research so that you can find it on the usual pages like ResearchGate and stuff like that. But maybe you can also, I don't know, set up an Instagram or YouTube account and just tell the people about what you're finding out, and just make it more visible, and that way have
but I
a
think
bigger
there's one
impact.
big difference between a YouTube account and like an actual publication, because if you want to have it like in a magazine or they're really like people who are kind of declared as experts on this kind of topic and they look
Okay.
over it. And if you just do a YouTube channel, I don't want to blame
A YouTube
anybody, but if
guide.
you just do a YouTube, anybody could do like whatever he or she wants, and nobody is like checking if the information is actually like the best standard or the most recent thing, or like if he's just telling something.
Yeah,
So
but that's not what
of
I
course you
wanted to
can, of
say.
course you can do it, but of course it's nice to have like really like, I know you're doing a lot of these Instagram things, and I think a lot of people can really learn from. I've seen a lot of people you have linked on your Instagram, and a lot of people do a lot of videos and things about their enclosures and about the husbandry, and they really educate people with it, and it's a very, very good way of doing it. But maybe you should think even wider and not only do this, but also try to collect these information like in a scientific way to get even more out of it and to share it to a wider range of people and to do it a bit more science based.
Totally. Yeah, I think you can really take this both ways. It's
Yeah.
like for all of us like private keepers, we should really work on collecting data in a scientific way and to do our job, our work with the animals as professional as
But
possible.
I should also do Instagram videos
Yeah,
about my
but
research.
yeah, I'm just saying if you are already doing the research, then why not share it to the public as best as you can, and use the social media, for example, to just get attention on your topic. Because that will also make some more connections for you, or just it will spread the knowledge even better, and so on. And I think it's also that's what I wanted to say by it is also your responsibility to get the eyes on your work, by
Yeah, that's
maybe
right.
starting yeah, you can. I'm following some guy on Instagram, and he's a veterinarian in some
Ooh.
parks in Africa or whatever, and he's every day he's sharing some stories about some animals that he found in the bush and the way he's treating them and so on. And I mean, why not? It's at the end of the day, it's interesting work. You just need to find a way how to make it appeal in a good way.
And you
Yeah,
need time.
yeah, and that's for
I
sure.
think that's
I
a
think
big
that's
problem
mainly
working as a
my
huh?
problem.
Yeah. I
AI,
think yeah.
learn how to use it.
Maybe Ben can work as your assistant.
Assistant, as my personal
No,
assistant for my
Personal
social
assistant.
media.
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
if you pay him
that's a
good.
no.
I can
No,
provide free veterinary care for his Okay.
maybe. But do you already have a date when you will publish your work, Frida?
No, because the problem is if you write something, you have to then send it to the
Ah,
paper, to the magazine which you are aiming to publish in. And then they have the experts. You don't know who it is, but they have some people who are like very experienced in some kind of topics. And then your work is going to them, and they are checking it, looking into it. And I think it's 3 different people. And afterwards, they get it back to you and say, okay, it's good, or maybe you have to adjust this and that, and maybe it's not good. And then I have to see what I have to improve. And it's depending on a lot of things. So it's not that easy that you can just send it there and then it's like, okay, we will just publish it in the next
next
issue.
week.
No, it's like it's of course it's depending on which kind of magazine you're aiming for, which kind of journal, because they are different kinds. But if you want to publish in one of the very popular veterinary journals, it's not very easy to just send something. So I have to see. But I can definitely write a short thing. If any of your followers is interested in rhino nutrition, I can definitely write something for your
Yes,
Instagram.
I want to read it. Yeah, we will definitely take
Just
it.
like a short, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do you
Then
plan
you
to
know
publish?
then you know how to feed your rhinos.
Yeah, all the
Very,
rhinos.
very huge audience for that.
It's
But do you
interesting,
plan?
and I think there are a lot of things that you can transfer from one species to another.
That's
Do
for
you have
sure.
some examples for us, or is it still a secret
For
of
the
your
rhinos.
publishing from your
One thing
work?
is what we spoke about is like the fruit thing. Like
Yeah.
a lot of animals don't really need fruits, and the commercial fruits have a lot of sugar in it and are not very good for the animals. And also some mammals like rhinos, they get fruits in the best case only every now and then for medical training, but sometimes every day one hand, every day the next hand. And of course, that's not very good, and then they get maybe medical problems out of it. So this is one main thing. But when it comes to like nutrition, of course, you have to consider like the nutritional composition, like what is in the feed item. Like, is there a lot of sugar, carbs, what's in it? Of course, like natrium, kalium, iron, a lot of things. Do we need supplementation? Because a lot of animals, which are kept under human care, they need supplementation. And we also spoke about like that, for example, the feed animals, because some people are breeding them, the insects and stuff. You can also feed them different kind of ways to make them more valuable. But it's also about the fiber, for example,
Mhm.
because if you have the right composition of something but not the right fiber, it's also a problem for the animal to digest it or to get all of the nutritional things which are in it.
Try to
So
explain it a bit. What does it mean, the right fiber? Well, so
like it's with the rabbits. It's a very common example for the rabbits because
okay.
rabbits, they have like these teeth which are growing their whole life, and they need to feed high and also like bite on like woody structures and stuff to really like use the cheese, and also for their stomach to really like work and to split everything up. And if you feed them these commercial available pellets, they maybe have they maybe have the right ingredients, but they are like kind of split up. Like if we only would drink smoothies the whole day, then after 3 days only drinking smoothies, of course, smoothies might be healthy and we have a lot of good things and vitamins in the smoothie, but it's not very good for our gastrointestinal tract. And maybe after 3 days, we just would get terrible diarrhea
Yeah.
and not feel very well. And it's like the same with rabbits. If we only feed them the commercial available pellets and not really the fiber stuff, the hay and the woody things, they get problems with the teeth, which are growing too much. They get problems with the stomach because the wrong kind of bacteria can grow more than the usual ones. So they get kind of a dysbacteriosis.
Okay.
So it's not only about what's in it, it's also about like how is it the form of it. And now we come to the next point. It's also about like the presentation of how is the animal getting the food.
Okay.
Because like a lot of animals, most of their lifetime, or a lot of their lifetime, they spend with like searching for food. And if we just put once a day or twice a day a little bowl with food in an enclosure, and the animal just have to come at the same spot every day and just pick up the food and go away. Like it takes the animal only, I don't know, 10 minutes. And in the natural habitat, they will roam around, foraging, looking for food like for hours. So also like the presentation. If how are we offering the food? Are we just putting it somewhere? Are we like hiding it, distributing it? Like of course, if we feed like the insects, living insects, of course, it's like an enrichment for the animals. But if you feed like just fruits or vegetables or plants or like also dead stuff, are we just like putting it somewhere and that's it? Or do we make it a bit more variating, a bit more difficult for the animal? Maybe is there sometimes even an option if that the animal does not get the food? Maybe if it's not going after the food right away, we just say, okay, not today, and then we just stop feeding, because this is the usual thing that sometimes they don't have success with finding food. Of course, you should not let the animal starve, but maybe not make it too easy, and maybe think about the whole presentation and the whole feeding routine, because you can influence a lot of behavioral things with
I think
this.
that's a big issue, or more difficult with big predators like big cats and bears, like the top chain predators. Um, and I think maybe that's why they often have this tweaking, just roaming around the same route, because I guess a jaguar or a tiger will roam such big distances in the wild to catch some food. And in the
Yeah, but I
zoo,
think this is now we speak about one of the favorite topics of my supervisor from the university, because there are a lot of experiments feeding these big cats in a zoo. And I don't know if you've seen it, but some zoos, they have like some kind of construction where they like hang up the meat and it's like going around or like going through the enclosure, and then the animal has to run after it and jump and getting it. And of course it's nice because the animal is like moving and doing something and really like working for the food. But if you do it like for 2 years, the animal know what's going to happen. And of course it's like going for the food, but it's not jumping as high or like putting so much effort in it. And if you really want to create a situation like in the natural habitat, there has to be a point where the animal is not successful. So at one point, if the animal is not running directly to the food and trying to get it, maybe it will just go up somewhere and disappear again, and then it's one day without food. So then the animal really has to put an effort in it. And it's also a natural thing as for big cats that they don't have meat every day, and they have a lot of hunting experience with failure at the end. And this is very, very difficult to create in the zoo. And to think about these kind of things, this is like the highest step of animal nutrition, because this would be like the perfect way. But even to think about these little things, like for example, if we stay with the big cats, to just not put the meat on the ground at the same spot every day, but to like hang it up somewhere, to hide it somewhere, to variate every day where to put it. And you can do this with all the animals, not just put the food on the same spot, not just put one bowl with something somewhere, but to create variation, not feed maybe at the same time of the day every day, if it's an animal who's feeding every day, like just to create some unpredictable schedules. So the animal is not going into kind of a routine and getting bored that easy.
Mm-hmm.
do you
No,
think?
sorry,
Yeah.
we are deeply into the nutrition topic, and now I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's super interesting.
Yeah, I was just thinking about a
yes,
method that Till is doing at his in his terrariums in a way about
what are
the
you doing?
soldier fly larvae.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
to, or
In
maybe
this
you
one, for
can,
example.
yeah, you can tell what you're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for example, in there lives a knoll male, like this little lizard. Uh, he's climbing around somewhere, and for some reason, he doesn't like to eat larvae or worms or stuff. And most reptiles love them, but he loves everything that flies around. So sometimes I just buy these black soldier fly larvae, and I put some some things with the larvae at the bottom of the enclosure, and then they will develop into pupae, and then develop into the flies, and will just evolve into flies and at a random point and just fly around. So he has to catch them by himself. And for me, it's a very easy method to provide him food over a period of time when I'm not home, for example. So if I put in the larvae into the enclosure before I'm leaving for a week or something like this, you will have like these flies for the whole week because at some point they will hatch and fly around day after day. And that way he gets like a natural food supply that's just randomly popping up. Is that what you mean, Ben?
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
Yeah.
great. This is like the perfect example in the herpetologic world for what I was trying to say. So this is like perfect. This is so great to do this. But do you sometimes have the problems that you're maybe like feeding too much or have like
Yeah.
too much at the same time then?
It's sometimes hard to regulate these because you always buy them in at least these big boxes. And since I'm not keeping a lot of reptiles, it's not easy to split them up. So yeah, most likely he will get them. Yeah, but he doesn't look too fat, so I think it's okay. But yeah, you have to somehow
Can you
fucking
really
regulate
nose.
it.
tell it only by the looks?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, true.
Sometimes
And
no, you can definitely see a bit,
yeah,
but
but yeah,
yeah, but
I
it's
re
very cool that you do it like this. It's a very nice feeding enrichment, and I think it's a very good example of not just like putting something somewhere,
yeah,
but just like to create something, some kind of what we say enrichment, but
yeah,
in reality, is it really enrichment or is it just like the natural way of feeding for the
yeah,
animal that we are trying to recreate, and we call it enrichment as it would be something special, but it's just that the
Just normal.
normal, yeah, it should be the normal thing to do, like.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
In my case, with the two lizards I keep, it's good that they are so shy. For example, he is super shy. If I open it, he will just disappear into the green. And same with the night lizard I mentioned. And she's also, I think I've fed her with the tongs, like only once or twice in all the time I have her. And yeah, most of the time I'm just putting random different insects in her enclosure and just hope that she will hunt them down. So she's alive. When I see her, she is good looking. Yeah. Is it enough? I don't know.
It's good. No, it's
Yeah.
definitely good.
And also, yeah, I find that she poops, but I don't exactly know what she's eating. So in her enclosures, she's like this size, and in her enclosure is a mix of isopods. There are some different sized roaches roaming in there. When I have some grasshoppers that I use for him, I also throw them in there. There's a little population of worms living in the ground. So, and in the water part are some like water snails. I don't know what she's eating, but I offer some things and she has her own little microsystem where she gets to pick what she likes. But it's kind of strange because I'm used to keeping snakes, and with the snakes, you know exactly what you're feeding.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
putting in a dead body and the snake will eat it, or you wiggle it around and the snake will take it directly. And it's so different. And it wasn't that easy for me to change to this with the lizards, but I really like it because it feels more natural than just here is a dead body, please eat. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very cool, and especially if it's working, it's very nice. But it always, like, of course, I'm a veterinarian, and it always, from my point of view, it always bears the problems that you lose kind of track what the animal is
Yeah.
eating, or maybe miss something or something's going on. So these things are like wonderful and very perfect and the best possible way for the animals to be feeding, but it's
Mm.
always a bit of a risk that you miss something. But of course, like if it's working and if you have a functioning system, it's very nice to have it
Yeah.
like this. It's very
Maybe I
cool.
need more camera traps to see her more regular, so I have at least more points of view of her or something like this. But yeah, cool. But another thing I wanted to ask, now we are back at prey and prey items, so it's fitting. Do you think that some animals for special, yeah, like big predators, like big cats, do you think they need the, how do I call it, process of killing? Because like I can imagine with the tiger or something, they are so primed on like killing their prey by themselves. Do you think they are missing out on that in captivity? Because I feel like most zoos won't just throw in some
Of
goat in
course they
there.
won't, and it's
They
good
won't.
that they don't
Yeah,
do it because, of course, it's good to have like a whole prey feeding and stuff, but of course you also have to think about the prey animal, and it's a good thing that you not just like are able to throw live goats into a tiger
yeah,
enclosure, because I think most of the animals who are not used to kill them would not act very good with them, so we don't want this. But this is it's a very interesting question, of course, but it's very hard to say because to really look into this, to really see if the just the act of killing is something the animals miss, you would have to recreate all the other things, like the hunting, the running, the possibility to fail, and you really cannot create all these things because I don't think like just the act of killing an animal is the most important thing. But I think, like for example, the hunting experience, because we have like some animals, like we are back at the big cats, but lions, they hunt like together. And it's also a lot about like the group dynamics, about like which animals are more dominant. But they also like if they have like animals, sometimes older animals, which are not very good at hunting, they can also like participate in the what the whole group was getting out of the prey. So it's also a lot of a you can influence a group of animal very, very much with the feeding. And it's also with like reptiles, you also have to be careful, especially when you have like big enclosures and different kind of species in one enclosure. You have to really see, okay, do they maybe mix up some of the feeding stuff? It's like very often I have a lot of people who have some kind of tortoise and some kind of bird together in one
yeah,
room. And a lot of times the bird is getting some kind of fruit and stuff. And then the tortoises, of course, a lot of things are falling down, and the tortoises are eating like everything
yeah.
what they're not supposed to eat. But the people don't really care because the animals are living together and they are so happy together. But it's a thing you really have to consider because you cannot really, really like influence it. And also like the group dynamic, if you have like multiple animals, sometimes the females are more dominant, sometimes the males are more dominant. Sometimes dominant animals can get more of the feed, but sometimes it's also like a group things. Of course, for snakes, it's not really, really applicable. But for some animal species, especially when we are back with the big cats, which is totally not our topic today, but kind of.
But I like it.
Yeah, it's also like a group building exercise to hunt together.
Yeah.
So it's hard if the act of killing is really the most important thing, or is it more like the whole thing around it?
Maybe that's the case. But also it's a big danger
I
for
don't
the
know. I
animals.
don't know, but we
Yeah.
cannot look into the mind of the animal. We don't really
Yeah.
know. But we also don't know if the animals who were like bred in captivity, if they really know they are missing something because they never experienced anything different. They never have learned how to do this kind of stuff. And especially with snakes, if they are like born in captivity and only are used to the dead feed, most of them really know how to feed on dead prey. And I think there are even sometimes there are animals which are, if you try to offer them live feed, they are like not acting very well. They are not able to cope with these kind of situations because they're just not used to it and they don't really know what to do. So maybe also animals who are like kept in captivity for a long time or bred in captivity, maybe they also lose some kind of these instincts, but it's a very hard question. I can just like guess. It's very interesting, but
Yeah.
it's also hard to how could you measure this? Like
Yeah.
how could you see if the animal is
True.
missing something or not?
And that counts for also for different aspects of like
Yes.
keeping animals in captivity. And yeah, it's also a big risk. Maybe you've seen it in your work, Gila. I've seen a lot of
that
clips.
prey animals hurt
No,
like
no,
the
no.
animals were just supposed to eat them. Yes, I saw
Yeah,
that a lot. That like prey animals like were hurting the other animal. Like
like with
unfortunately,
big snakes,
yeah,
it's pretty
yeah,
common
like
because
biting
they're
them
just,
and yeah,
today I'm just
yeah,
laying
yeah,
around. Okay,
yeah.
rabbit, eat me.
It's
Something
not
like this.
uncommon.
Yeah, and it can get so bad. I didn't know this until I saw some very crazy pictures of like big boas with huge
Yeah,
flesh wounds from
especially when
Yeah.
they're
like
feeding
guinea
rats,
pig.
right?
Yeah.
Rats can be
Yes.
super dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And a lot of people who keep like their reptiles in the summer, like in some kind of outside enclosures,
Mhm.
they are like m making sure that the animals cannot escape. But they don't think that maybe other animals can come from the outside and try to get in the enclosure, like rats. A lot of time it's
Yeah.
rats, and they bite on the reptiles and they can really harm them. But a lot of people only think about preventing their own animals from like escaping and not the other way around.
But that with tortoise that bury themselves for hibernation, and then
Yeah.
the rats are just like, oh,
Yeah.
there seems to be
Yeah.
something down there. Dig them up and
This is like
feed on them.
I have to say I'm not very good with like I always see the stuff now I always see the stuff Ben is doing on Instagram, like building these enclosures and like really like mechanical, technical building stuff and I'm not very good at it. But I'm getting better because every now and then I'm getting these kind of tortoises which were like bitten on by rats, dogs. Sometimes people are stepping on them accidentally, or sometimes even a car is running over them. I don't know how this can happen. And they have the destroyed
No. Shell.
carapax, plastron, whatever. And then I have to try to fix it. And it's kind of an interesting act because sometimes you really have to like put in some wire or stuff to
Construction work.
really connect the different kind of structures and to prevent the animal to have like an hole in it. And unfortunately, a lot of times biting by other animals, by mammals, is one of the main cause why this happens.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh man, I
beat
can
your own
only
tortoise.
imagine how difficult it is to treat a broken shell like that because also you have a huge chance of I don't know, bringing some bacteria and stuff inside, right? And then to close up the
Yeah, but I
wound
think
above.
a lot of reptiles are especially the tortoises, they are very tough with these kind of things.
Okay.
So you just give them antibiotics, and a lot of them are dealing very well with this. Also, like birds,
Okay.
they are not very prone to get these kind of wound infections like dogs and cats. So they are
Okay.
much tougher with this. But you have like other risks and problems. And I have to say, I do this thing where I try to fix them, but there are like other veterinarians who like when they have like some internal problems, really do like surgery, where they cut the whole animal open, do the surgery, the operation to reach like the organs, and in the end they kind of easily spoken glue them back together, which is like so amazing to see how they operate a tortoise. Like it's
Man,
like
crazy.
crazy, and it's working and it's healing and the animals are doing fine.
Yeah.
It's like so amazing to see this. Like
Crazy.
they have a really good ability to heal after wounds and this kind of stuff.
How long does it take in general to like grow back together for these
Oh, you can
shells?
like already still after I think 1 or 2 years, you very often you can see after years that there was something.
Mhm.
But it takes like to just get a closed thing, maybe months.
Yeah.
So it takes a long time.
I've seen some interesting pictures of like turtles and tortoise with these external fixatures
Yes,
on the shell. It
yes,
looks crazy.
yes. And it's also
Pretty
you have
cool.
to be very creative because I don't know, every animal is different and you don't always have like one special way of fixation. So you have to really be creative and try to get it together somehow. It's a bit like building something, just it's a live animal.
Puzzling will help.
Holy shit. All right, interesting. I have two more questions, but also I do not really have so much more time. So
But we
maybe
are
Okay.
creeping
maybe
up
I can just
on
put
two
out the
hours.
two question and you can
Yeah, I'm
choose
sorry.
which one you
I
want to
think
answer.
I maybe crashed your time schedule because I was just
Oh, it's fine, it's
There is no
fine.
time schedule.
and
Yeah, it is actually.
apologies, Ben, for stealing your topic from the other podcast. I really didn't know that.
No, it's a perfect introduction, man. It's great. But so there are two topics that I would like to put out there today, and it's the one is maybe especially interesting for the listeners here. Maybe can you give us like an advice or a suggestion about like a veterinary protocol that private keepers should execute at home or should well, I don't know how do you say should do maybe like examination of feces every X months, maybe like a visit at a veterinary clinic with your reptiles every now and then, or maybe is it only in case of injury, or would you suggest to, I don't know, post your pictures of your reptiles on Facebook groups and ask for feedback, or is there
Don't do
any
that.
protocol that you recommend the people to do?
I don't have a special protocol, and it's definitely depending on the species. But especially for reptiles who are going into hibernation, I think it's very important to do like an annual fecal check because, of course, the animal has like an immune system and it's working very well during summertime. And then when the animal is going into hibernation and they have some kind of problems, maybe just a little bit of parasites, they can get real severe problems. And sometimes you just will notice it when it's too late. So this is
Okay.
really a thing, and it's very easy. You just have to collect the feces and bring it to a veterinarian who can look at it. It's not very expensive. It's not very invasive. So this is a thing that definitely everybody could do. And yeah, for the general checkups, it's very hard to say because I can totally understand that, like for animals, which like Till described earlier, that he does not see his animals very often, and they have like their own little bioactive
World.
zone where they are living in. It's totally nice for them to leave them just there, but you always have like the chance of missing something. And especially if an animal is getting older, and especially if you are interested in like breeding with the animal, it would not hurt to at least get in contact with the veterinarian and see if you maybe can get in for checks. I will not recommend a certain time span in which you are doing it because it's definitely depending on the animal species, on the age, and also on the possibilities that you have, and also on what the veterinarian can do. I know that sometimes a lot of veterinarians are not happy with exotic species because they don't know so much about them. But you should not be afraid to just get in contact with them and just try to figure out a way how to care on a veterinary way for your animals the best. And I think I can only speak for myself, and I really love it when people like approach me and say, okay, maybe we can do something like this, maybe we can do something like that. Or they bring me a lot of pictures and a lot of information and stuff. As long as they put an effort into it and not just say, oh, it always worked, so I will not do anything because it always worked. So I can give any advice, just to have like an open mind and just to be very thoughtful about your animal. And if you notice any abnormalities, then don't hesitate. See if you can do something.
Okay. Okay. One very valuable tip I think is to make the examination of feces, I think you call it,
Yeah.
like the poop test.
Yeah,
So
that's easy.
you said that you can just bring the poop to your veterinarian, but probably for some people it's more easy to do it remote by the post.
Yes.
So do you maybe have a good source of a laboratory that we can use, or do you have a recommendation about
Where you
that?
can send the feces.
Yeah. Or it's just a quick Google research and then you got it.
It's depending on which area you are in. Like for Germany, we have like Marek Hallinger. I think he's in Marburg right now, and
Yeah.
he is doing the Exomet, and he is doing a lot of these kind of sampling things for exotic stuff, and he's very experienced in it. I definitely can recommend him.
Okay.
But most of the time, for just doing like a quick check if there are any parasites and worms, like almost every vet can do this. They just need to have like a microscope and a little bit of equipment, so it's not a very special thing. You don't need like an expert for something.
Okay. All right. That was topic number one. Do I have the chance to ask another question?
Of course. Go on.
Okay, because also like speaking about the topic of diseases, pests, and parasites and stuff, I'm wondering what is your opinion about these nationwide or even European-wide reptile expos where people come from all over Europe and exchange animals, and that way maybe also transfer diseases. And I just want to quickly give this input about this. I know there was some kind of a salamander disease. I think they called it the salamander eater, and it was kind of a fungus infection.
Trachorhytrium salaman.
Probably,
I hate
probably
it.
this one.
The abbreviation is BSAL, and it's a fungal thing which is killing the salamander population in Europe right now, and it's a
Yeah.
very severe disease.
Yeah, and for a certain time it was prohibited to trade salamanders on reptile expos because of that reason.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what's your opinion about uncontrolled animal transfers and also your knowledge about the traces system and the official way to handle animal transports.
Yeah, of course, there's a reason why we have like the official way and why certain animals needed some kind of papers to be brought somewhere. So of course it's a good thing. And if you do like these kind of unofficial trades and stuff, there's always a risk that you spread something. And there are like so many examples in the past where people just brought some animal somewhere and they did not just bring the animal, but they also brought some bacteria or fungal structures or viruses or something. So you always have a risk. And especially these kind of things where a lot of people from all over Europe meet to exchange certain kind of animals, you have a very high risk of spreading something. But I think it's not just only about the trading, about the transport. It's also a lot about how people are doing it, like by themselves, because everybody can be responsible by himself, can be like, okay, I'm transporting an animal. I will make sure that all my transportation things are very clean. I will have some disinfection for my hands, for my shoes. I will try not to get in contact with something with my car or with whatever, just to be like to follow some, one could say like usual rules of hygiene, or maybe just do like testing before bringing an animal somewhere. Of course, there's a reason why they are the official ways, because we had it a lot of times that some diseases were brought somewhere and then they spread out very, very quickly. And when we notice, it's usually too late. So it's definitely something you should think about and you should consider, and you should really like try to act responsible.
Maybe it's even a cool idea if you're planning to purchase an animal to ask the owner to do a quick test of the feces. You know, you can even pay
Yes.
for it. I mean, if it's not going to be that much, maybe $30 or
Yeah.
so. But if you've got a fresh test which confirms that the animals are clean, then you will feel better about the making the deal and also the
Some people are doing it.
transferring some
Like
issues.
sometimes when you, I don't know, some people when they buy animals, you have like a
Yeah.
certificate that they went to the veterinarian, or sometimes people are coming to me and saying, I'm going to sell these kind of animals. Can you do like a fecal exam and a quick check and just write something that you checked them and you did not find anything? And of course, it's just a quick check, so you cannot really guarantee that the animal is free of everything, but it's always good to have at least like something, and it's a good thing to ask for.
Should be normalized even more, I feel like.
And
Yeah.
people don't forget to do the quarantine when you get new animals.
Definitely, that's very important.
Yeah.
And I think this is also a problem which I am always a bit skeptical about these like terroristica and these kind of things. Because I know how tempting it is when you are somewhere and you see a lot of very cool animals, and then you are like, oh my God, I always wanted to keep this one, and now there's somebody selling it, and then you're just like impulsive, like love blinded, buying something, and then you're like, okay, I have to put it somewhere, and you're not prepared, you don't have the perfect enclosure, you don't have the possibility to do a quarantine, and then you're like, oh, it's looking healthy, I just do like 2 days and then put it inside with the other ones, or put it somewhere, or like whatever. Of course, it's very tempting, and a lot of times you can do this and maybe it will be fine, but you have a very high risk that something could happen. So, of course, as a veterinarian, I always have to be the not so fun guy who's telling you not to do it like this, and be a bit more reasonable about it, and not just go out, buy something, and then after buying, you have to come up with a plan how to proceed. Of course, it's more fun to just go out and say like, oh my God, I love this animal, I get this. But on the long term, we don't want to just buy something and then don't really provide the best care for the animal. So we should really ask ourselves if we just want the animal right now, or if we really want to provide the animal with a good health, welfare, environment, all the things we spoke about today.
I
Yeah,
think that's a great statement.
a
Last
great
statement.
closing
Finished.
statement.
Yeah, I think Ben has to go. Like he's already looking like at us.
Yes, they
Gila,
got some training to do.
for
Okay.
our listeners, are there any platforms where they can find you, or do you want to share some of your socials, or do you want to stay more private?
No, definitely. I can share my social media. I'm not very active on social media and not posting a lot of work-related things, mostly because I work a lot with private people, and sometimes they don't want to have their information shared overall. So I'm not doing it very often, but I maybe could start and invest more time into it. So I definitely can put my Instagram out. I can also say right now I'm
Yeah,
located
say it right now. We
near
can also check
Augsburg.
it.
Right now I'm working at the Tierklinik Gessertshausen. And if anybody around here wants to come in with whatever kind of animals, I'm not an expert for everything, but I'm definitely open to read about things, to inform myself about things, to get in touch with colleagues who are maybe more experts than I am. And I'm definitely open to do everything. No, a lot of collaboration. So I would be happy to get in contact if somebody wants something.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's all I can say right now.
Amazing. Okay.
All
I
right.
also promised you some pictures. I don't have any reptile pictures, but I will send you some pictures afterwards.
Yeah.
You can put on your if you want
For
to.
the inside. Yeah, of course. Of course. And do you want to say the name of your Instagram real quick for the people that are not looking into the description?
What's my Instagram name? It's Gila FS.
I think so. We will
Till,
check
help
it.
me, help me.
Oh no.
Yeah, you see, I'm not very good with social media. I'm sorry, guys. I don't have so much time. I have to do it more. You're the expert for social media. I'm not.
Yeah, we will tell you,
But I
and
think
then you will become an expert.
people will be able to find me if they
Yes,
really want to.
that's for sure. All right.
Pretty
Thank you
fucking
so
cool.
much for your
Thank you very
time.
much for having me.
Of course.
I hope you got what you expected, or maybe not.
It was
But I really
perfect.
enjoyed it. It
Let
was
us
fun
know
with you
in the
guys.
comments.
Yes,
Okay, bye bye.
definitely.
Bye listeners.